Hello everyone, Kaoz here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. It's become a tradition on this channel to give you guys a gear progression videos every 2 years, and the same can be said about our bossing ladder series. And with so many new PVM encounters for all stages of the game added in recent memory, we now jump onto the 2025 bossing ladder to give you an accurate PVM progression for your account if you want to improve slowly but surely at this wonderful game. Boys and girls, if you subscribe to the channel and drop a fat like, then next the boss you kill will drop a pet or a unique. You can also join our Discord server with the link in the description for PVM guidance and to find a team to go raiding with. I want to give a big thank you to my Grandmaster pals Cyberite and Thursgoal who helped me fine-tune this bossing ladder, so safe to say you can trust the 3 Grandmaster players to tell you the order in which you should tackle every PVM encounter in old school RuneScape. This year's upload follows the same format and rules. Although PVM difficulty can be subjective, we will look at today's list of bosses and the different variations from least to most difficult and how punishing they are. I will also assume that you have gear according to the difficulty of the encounters, not counting mega weapons. Certain items could make bosses easier if you are not a seasoned PVMer, but I will mention if difficulty could change if you are lacking a crucial item in your bank. The final one is that we will divide a few encounters in their solo or group variants, and even different levels of difficulty when applicable, so you have a rough idea of when you could jump from a group to a solo challenge. And with all that being said, let's start the official 2025 bossing ladder for old school RuneScape. Just like my gear progression, which included a tiny segment for our free-to-play brothers and sisters, I thought about including a for fun segment for this video, and we will quickly talk about things that, although officially listed as bosses, or even if they look like it, are by no means PVM related. In the absolute bottom of the list, we have the Gemstone Crab. This has now become one of the pillars of AFK activities, giving very decent experience per hour with only a few clicks per session. Just watch out coming here with low defense, since quite a lot of people have died here, including hardcore accounts. A skilling boss where you literally cannot take damage is Temporos. Doing this activity in mass worlds will give you some pretty quick KCs and high experience per hour under the right circumstances, and doing it solo via the firefighter method will teach you a little bit about character pathing, as you put out the fires around the island when things get out of hand. Next we have the Winter Toad, and even though you cannot take damage anymore thanks to a recent update, if your warmth meter reaches 0, it will result in your character dying automatically. You have a lot of time to react before this happens, but if it's too late, you cannot recover from certain death. Doing solo for points will change the strategy a little bit, but nothing too out of the ordinary. The hardest scaling boss in the honorable mentions category is Zalcano. This doesn't mean she's miles ahead of the past 3, but if you're not paying attention, things can get out of hand rather quickly. The glyphs on the floor and falling rocks can deal a ton of damage, and you can die in a matter of seconds. This concludes the silly part of the bossing ladder, and now let's get into the real thing. Before we start, I know you guys have been waiting for a sign to bring your love for old school RuneScape to real life, and to take this video as your cue to do it with today's video sponsor, Creator Crafted. Nothing says old school RuneScape player as much as having something in your gaming station to represent our favorite medieval cookie clicker game. They have a wide range of products to satisfy almost anyone's needs, including desk mats, LED lights, plushies, resin statues, and much more. Some of their new products include a giant squirrel statue, and they just opened pre-orders for custom keycaps for your keyboard in the form of F-keys, which to be honest, if they fit on mine, I'll certainly be getting. They are also hosting a clearance sale for some of their products, so there has never been a better time to get something from their store. I'm pretty sure you'll find something you're definitely going to love, so if you do and you want to support the channel, use code Kaoz10 at checkout or use the link in the description or the pinned comment to get 10% off your entire order. Thank you very much to Creator Crafted for sponsoring this video, and let's continue. We start the easy tier with the Kraken. We have a ton of encounters on the list that have received significant changes, but this is something for which the strategy has remained the same pretty much since its introduction. Even with all of the magic items at my disposal, I would still bring the Sanguinesti staff here to passively heal throughout the fight. But one item you will hear me mention a lot throughout the video is the Eye of the Ayak. It is slightly more expensive because it's pretty new and it doesn't have the healing passive effect, but it is a 3-tick attack style weapon, which makes it pretty effective at old school RuneScape's easiest boss. We now head over to the cave underneath Falador Park to fight the giant mole. Something else that was added since the last bossing ladder video is the elemental weaknesses mechanic. And if you want to dispose of this boss slightly quicker, it now has an earth elemental weakness, meaning it will take additional damage from earth spells. This is further amplified if you use a new Tome of Earth charged with soil pages, and thanks to these new toys, you won't need a Shadow or a T-bow if you want to kill this boss quickly for that super cute pet. Bryophyta is the weakest of the now 4 giant bosses, because as long as you pray magic and take care of her little simps as soon as they spawn, she doesn't have any threatening mechanics. Since this is a free-to-play boss, you can imagine how easy it can be with members-only items, and if you've been living under a rock, you can now kill her without a mossy key. However, to get KC and the loot you normally would have gotten in the past, you need to open the chest in the lair with a mossy key. Mechanics wise though, this boss remains extremely chill, and something the free-to-play champions may want to do for a chance at the Bryophyta's essence. Olbor is slightly more difficult because his attacks can deal devastating damage if you are facing him with subpar levels and gear as it was intended. I mean, just look at one of my good pals getting absolutely smacked around for a guide he made.
That can get dicey as his ranged attacks off prayer can hit pretty big, but just eat up, don't panic, and keep doing damage until he dies.
If you have an okay magic level though, binding spells could help you out just a little bit. For the purposes of killing him quickly in the early or mid game though, I would advise sticking to the melee combat style and pray that he won't toss you around like a ragdoll around the arena. Just like the Kraken, another boss that hasn't changed mechanically at all since our last video is the Mimic. The gatekeeper of the music cape can be slain in just a few seconds with good gear and the special attack weapons. But if you don't have shiny toys at your disposal, you will need to dodge candy and save up against the 3rd age melee, ranger, and mage that spawn after a short while. I find that it is still pretty effective to kill it with magic, because this way you can just pray melee and run around the room until it is time to open your casket. The Thermonuclear Smoke Devil is one of my favorite bosses because it is just so quick to kill, it's not even funny. My preferred method of doing so is by placing a cannon base in the room, and clicking between the entrance and the base will make it unable to move thanks to the Red X mechanic. Pray Redemption and sip on your prayer potions when it procs, and you can stay here for a ridiculous amount of time. If you decide to kill it with magic though, stick to single target freezing spells to avoid aggroing the Smoke Devils, which will put you out of his attack range. When it's frozen, just attack with magic weapon of your choice, and freeze again when the effect wears off until the end of the kill. Barrows remains part of any Iron account's gear progression as you gain higher defensive stats to take on the Moon's Apparel. And thanks to elemental weaknesses added to them, as well as receiving more damage from air spells, this means that items like the Warped Scepter or the Trident weapons are not as crucial as they once were. Pair that up with a Gomel's Hilt 2, which prevents a prayer being drained when inside the crypts, and a Strange Lockpick to bypass the locked doors and even the puzzles. This makes it so barrows are now easier than ever, but just make sure to have enough prayer against the Darok even when he's at low HP. A low level boss I have praised quite a ton when I include it in my videos is Scurious the Rat King. This is the very first brand new boss on the list, of course if you don't count the Gemstone Crab, and if you're looking to improve at this game, Scurious will teach you a lot of the crucial mechanics you will need to get comfortable with on your way to tougher encounters. It will teach you positioning, prayer switches, and even one-tick attacks if you have a Ratbone weapon and you kill his minions in quick succession. It is also a decent training method if done in a group, but I think the Gemstone Crab already took over that area. The King Black Dragon is the only wieldy boss located in the easy category, because the only dangerous part is getting to it. Once inside, whether it be in a public or a private instance, you are safe from any PKer looking to snag your items. Some people like to kill it with melee, but I will always recommend the ranged method as you stand next to it with Protect from melee enabled. The high damage defense from your ranged armor will make it less likely for him to hit you, and with Dragonfire protection you can stay here for quite a few kills. If you want to AFK it though, there's a new method that uses Ancient, the Dragon Hunter Wand, and Virtues, but I would personally not recommend it out of fear of you getting killed on your way there. The final boss in this category is the Hespori. If you go in there with Protect from Magic enabled and a few sips of anti-poison, the basic ranged attacks won't really be able to do too much. If you're a hardcore though, you definitely want to stay high on HP, because the special attack where it entangles you for a few seconds could hit upwards of 40 if you don't free yourself in time. This is something you can easily do with mid or even early game gear, and a boss Irons definitely want to start as soon as possible for chances at that ever so important bottomless compost bucket. We start the medium tier with Sarachnis. Now, if you battle this boss with low stats, it will definitely seem quite annoying, not because the boss itself, but the little minions that spawn around the area to aid her in battle. Taking care of the mechanics correctly means that you will take 0 damage from the big spider, but the chip damage will be noticeable. This is, however, nothing a good crush weapon and high magic defense bonus can't fix that. And if you're a higher level player, the recently added Arania boots make Sarachnis 100% AFK, and you will only need to click on the screen to drink prayer pots and to pick up your loot. Another boss which requires a special item to defeat like the Mimic is Skotizo. Assembling a dark totem from the 3 pieces obtained in the Catacombs of Corinth will let you access his lair, and if you bring an Arclight here, the fight will be pretty easy. The only annoying part will be going to the pillars at the edges of the arena to avoid Skotizo gaining defense, making it harder to defeat. At a certain point, he will summon little demons like spiders from Sarachnis, but these can be mostly ignored until the end of the fight. This boss is pretty attractive because of the 20% chance to receive an elite clue, and a guaranteed heart clue if you have not reached your cap. This next one may sound weird, but trust me, there's a reason for it. The Corporeal Beast is something that may sound intimidating for a lot of players, but the reason why I have it here on the list is because you will never, under any circumstance, fight this boss where the mechanics can one-shot you. I've seen people duo or dolo it with Fang and Masori, Mass Corp for which it is very hard to die, and the main reason why I have it here is that if you want to do it solo, you will dramatically lower its stats to turn it into a 2000 HP chicken. I'm sure this one will raise a few eyebrows, so let me know what you think in the comments. The second part of Valimor brought with it a surprise boss which I haven't seen happen in my time playing old school RuneScape. The Amoxiliatl is a stronger version of a Frost Nagua, requiring completion of the Heart of Darkness to fight, since it is also the final boss of that quest. After this though, it will be slightly more difficult to defeat, but nothing too crazy. It is a very good stepping stone into tougher encounters, since you have to move very often to avoid hazards on the floor. Combined with prior deactivation mechanics and the blocks of ice you need to break in quick succession, this is a pretty easy boss on your journey. The same update gave us the Weikoatl. And although it is very easy to avoid the, let's call them basic attacks, things get a little more complicated when dodging the tail slam. First phase has you praying against projectiles and dodging lightning as you weaken the tail, and when you go up the mountain, coordinating with randoms to light up the pillars will be a nightmare. As long as you can find a good timing you're comfortable to avoid the tail slam halfway through the kill, you should be good to go as you hunt for the wand, the Tome of Earth, or the Weikoatl hide for the new armor. One of my favorite additions in recent memory are the Royal Titans. These newer bosses aimed towards early and the mid-level accounts feel very rewarding, but nothing beats the Fire Queen and the Ice King. The battle itself is a little more complicated than the bosses we have seen so far, but if you're able to manage gear switches, elemental ghosties, and the walls of flame and ice around the arena, you are in for a treat. They drop upgraded ranged and mage scrolls so you have a meaningful boost in DPS on your way to the dexterous and arcane scrolls from chambers, and iron accounts may even use these at the corrupted gauntlet instead of camping cogs for DPS upgrades. The Dagannoth Kings are some of the most ancient bosses in the game, back when pretty much all mechanics bosses could have was dealing damage. This one may be a little intimidating for players going in there for the first time, but nothing to fear. Go in there with range spray enabled, and then try to go near the Major to then flick your prayers to kill the Dagannoth Prime, and then focus on Supreme. If a Rex goes near you, it is now time to flick both range and melee prayer, and when only Rex is left standing, all you need to do is upkeep the damage for the rotation to be manageable as you hunt for the important drops. The deranged archaeologist hasn't changed mechanically. All you need to do is attack from a distance, and every time he shouts "learn to read", he will throw books at you which explode and also spread upon impact. This doesn't sound terrible, but taking into account that he can deal up to 56 damage from a single direct hit from this attack, can definitely sit you down in a single special. This will be worth it for Irons especially, because it now has a unique drop called a Steel Ring, which has the best defensive stats in the game. No matter how many items adds to the game, the Kalphite Queen will always be one of those things you really don't want to do, but you just do it anyway because of the Elite Desert Diary, a Slayer task, or that extremely cool pet. Just like the King Black Dragon and the Dagannoth Kings, this boss's specialty is hitting like a truck, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just walk under if you have a slower weapon to trade blows, or heal when you're on low HP. And if you were wondering, the overhead prayers don't mean she is immune to damage, it is merely a suggestion to what style to use because of her defensive stats. From here on out, the rest of the bosses in the category are located in the wilderness. Their ranking doesn't really mean that they're hard, but the added risk of players attacking you is enough to make them harder and more stressful. We start with the Crazy Archaeologist, and this fight is virtually identical to the Deranged Archaeologist, the only difference being that it is located in the wildy. As long as you pray ranged and move away from the books, the only thing to watch out for are PKers trying to go after your booty, so teleport as soon as you see one. Like the previous bossing ladder, we are doing shared spots with our own ranking for 3 bosses which you can kill in single and multi-combat areas. Starting with Calvarion and then Vedion, the boss literally cannot damage you directly, and you will only be harmed if you step on or near lightning, or also the hounds chomping on you in the process. When it transitions, step under to avoid lightning damage going to the second phase, and kill the hounds whenever they spawn, otherwise you won't be able to deal damage. Even without wieldy weapons, with good enough crush bonuses, he will die rather quickly and you can actually get pretty decent loot. Artio and Callisto are next, and in my opinion, these can be a little more annoying, but not dangerous if you have good reflexes. This is the only of the big 3 that require switches, since you will need to hold them in place to avoid the chunky melee hits. After this, just swap to your best ranged or magic weapon, and pray against the standard basic attacks. When you see the white orb coming your way, you need to have Protect from Magic enabled before it reaches you, otherwise you will go flying towards a wall and be dealt ridiculous damage, which can sit you down rather fast. Spindle and Venenatis are next, and not because they are a strictly harder fight, but because Spindle is located farther in the wildy, and because they drop the Voidwaker gem, which is the most expensive piece at the time of making this video. I say this because more people might be looking for the expensive drop, and chances to find a PKer could be exponentially higher. It also has a mechanic where if you step on the spider web for too long, it will drain a ton of your run energy, and being caught here without it could be pretty bad. The last boss, which seems to be a copy-paste of others, is the Kaoz Fanatic. This fight is also virtually identical to the Deranged and Crazy Archaeologist, but the only difference is that you will need to protect from magic instead. Move away from the green projectiles thrown your way, and congratulations, boss defeated. This one is higher up in the ranking because it is farther away in the wildy, and also because it is near the Chaos Altar, which is a massive hotspot for PKers in the wildy, looking for easy kills, stealing people's bones. In terms of the fight though, it isn't really too bad, and I only recommend doing it for a quick Slayer task or bingo event. Second to last on the wildy is the Chaos Elemental. This is one of the most brain-dead fights if you do it with the flinching method, and could definitely be placed lower in the ranking. But again, we are just so deep in the wildy that most of the nerfs won't really come from the boss itself, but rather the PKers. If fought normally, it can still deal quite a lot of damage, but other than this, the only annoying part is taking off some of your equipped items, which can be countered by eating pies as food. This is something a lot of people do for one of the most common pets in the game, at a humble 1 in 300 chance. The final boss on the medium category is Scorpia, and if you've noticed the pattern, I have this encounter here not because it's hard, but because this is the farthest PVM activity you can do in the wilderness. Despite you having the lever to Edgeville and the obelisk nearby, if you catch a teleblock here, chances of surviving are as low as Jagex introducing the supposed unique item Scorpia was meant to get several years ago. All you need to do is freeze Scorpia to deal damage, and when the little simps spawn, freeze them in place as Scorpia starts moving, and you can finish off the kill before they heal her back to full. We start the hard category with the Jad and the fight games, and just like I mentioned in the previous bossing ladder, this encounter may be a little tougher than some challenges coming up, especially for new and returning players, but I strongly suggest you get a fire cape to take on the next bosses. I'm sure Jad needs no introduction, and if you haven't yet to go through the 62 waves of monsters to face him, you can check out my recent guide for the best strategies to overcome your childhood fear. If it was just Jad we needed to fight, it would be a little easier than some of the bosses we have seen, but getting to him can be quite the ordeal, especially if you have never done it before. So we talked about the Amoxiliatl and the Waikoatl when the second part of Valamor came out. However, the first part brought an encounter which has become instrumental in the Iron Man gear progression, and that is the Moon Superal. This triple encounter kinda mimics the Barrows brothers, since you have to defeat the Eclipse, Blue, and the Blood Moon to be able to receive their powerful uniques. Just be warned that you might need a tankier armor to avoid being absolutely racked by them, but other than this, their mechanics are relatively quick to get into on your way to new weapons and armor. The God Wars dungeon may seem a little intimidating for people just getting into PVM, but the easiest encounter is Commander Zeliana. Thanks to run energy changes back in January of this year, you won't need as many stamina potions as before, or even none whatsoever. And to do decent damage, all you need is Diamond Bolts as you protect against the minions. Since Zeliana can only damage you when she is in melee distance, kiting her around the room means she won't be able to touch you, unless you mess up the cycle, which you can check out in my guide. Fighting the Grotha's Guardians has become a lot easier over time, but one of the biggest changes is that you can now do the entire fight with melee thanks to the Noxious Halberd. This way, you won't need to bring any ranged switches, and bringing your most powerful melee gear to bring more supplies and come out of the encounter with more loot than before. In my personal opinion, ranged is still pretty decent thanks to the Venator bow. Just stack the gargoyles together, and despite the Dusk being immune to range, arrows will bounce back to Dawn for quick damage. This is a boss I still haven't committed to since I got pet and combat achievements, but a fun one nonetheless. We have better ways to kill the Grotha's Guardians, right? But the Abyssal Sire has received massive changes that make it go from dogshit to not as dogshit. Demon-Bane weapons can now one-shot all 4 vents in the room, and transitions between phases are now a lot quicker. To balance things out, the Sire now has slightly more HP, but honestly, these changes are absolutely insane. In the past, you needed nearly full mage or range switches to take care of the vents quickly, but you can now bring your best in slot melee gear and a lone scorching bow if you have one. Mechanics will still keep you on your toes, especially the explosion at the end combined with a little demons around it. I have this one here to respect the same format as our previous video, and the Mass Nex is one of the most brain-dead things you can do in the game. That being said though, you still have a few mechanics that could sit you down rather quickly, and it is not like the Corporeal Beast which literally cannot kill you if you drain its stats with proper items. The Zerosian General has a total of 5 phases, and you can still walk out of here with a bit of knowledge. But if you want to learn a lot more, as well as get better chances at the expensive uniques, we will look at small teams in a later segment. I always tell people that you can do entry mode Tombs of a Mascot solo or in a group with literally base 60s in combat, and this is the first iteration of a raid in today's bossing ladder. If you go in there with no invocations, or very few of them to start, you are going to learn quite a lot about the game, and it is really not that threatening at all. Even the final boss will feel like a snooze fest, and the upcoming bosses will be harder than anything you can find in an entry TOA. Talking about each individual boss would take a little too long, so if you want, you can join our Discord for our TOA mentor sessions and start getting comfortable with 4 more complex encounters in old school RuneScape. A monster that has not changed at all since our previous video is Kriara. The second God Wars Dungeon General, or third if you count Nex, can be really tough if you don't have a Tunic in Shadow. And since that's probably the majority of players, I still recommend learning the Chinchompa method featured in my video, since that will give you the best chances at survival and a decently long trip without a mega weapon. Some of you might be wondering if killing this boss with a Noxious Halberd is worth it, and to that I say you should only do it with a partner by abusing the Soul Flame Horn, otherwise solo melee Kree will be a thing of nightmares. The Alchemical Hydra has the highest Slayer level requirement as of the time of making this video, but that does not mean that the fight is difficult by any means. The only annoying part will be dragging it to the fountains in order to weaken it, and besides running away from lightning, this is where bosses start getting special attacks or mechanics which can deal heavy damage. During the final phase where you need to alternate prayers, the Hydra can hit up to 55, so just the 2 unprotected hits can send you to Lumbridge. As long as you can count to 3 though, you will get this fight down in a few KCs into your first Slayer task. Time for most people's favorite PVM moneymaker, the Money Dragon. Just like many bosses we have seen on this list, Vorkath has not received any changes pretty much since its introduction. This is one of the few bosses that has a mechanic that can deal up to 121 damage, meaning certain death. However, you have a lot of time to react to it. Whenever people ask me about it on stream, I always tell them that you should use a range for budget kills, since a Dragon Hunter lens will need a few more levels and gear to rival the time with a Dragon Hunter crossbow, for which you only need Void, a Salve Amulet EI, and Ruby Bolt. I'm thinking about remaking my Vorkath guide, so you let me know what you think in the comments. On the other hand, Duke's Oculus received one of the most insane changes I have seen in my time playing old school RuneScape. If you've been living under a rock, you can now keep your ingredients between kills, and with a high enough herb lore level, this means that you can prepare 4 kills worth of potions. These also now stack so you can prepare all of them at once, and the kill timer now starts when Duke wakes up, rather than when you are able to gather supplies. If you're looking for the pet, the Axe Piece, or the Magus Vestige, there has never been a better time to farm Duke, especially thanks to Oathplate armor. The next God Wars Dungeon General is Krill Tusaroth. Full disclaimer, if you have a Scorching Bow, this boss could pretty much go in the easy or medium tier, because paired with a Light Bearer, it turns into one of the least threatening bosses we have seen up to this point. Assuming, however, that you don't have one, decent melee gear and an Arc Light will do pretty well against it. All you have to watch out for is a special attack that deals damage based on your prayer points, which can be quite scary. And remember to bring Antidote, since poison damage from these demons starts at a whopping 20. In my opinion, the most difficult God Wars Dungeon boss to solo, especially getting into it for the first time, is General Grardor. We have 2 ways to kill him, and the first one is by walking under and draining blows, praying melee, hoping he doesn't do the range attack, which can deal heavy blows. The second one is the Bofa Door method, which is a lot safer. However, if you fall out of cycle, things can get out of hand rather quickly. This is the worst one in my opinion, because while we have ways to cheese the other 3, if you're not doing the door method, your Grardor trips are not going to last too long, especially without best in slot gear. Up next we have another Slayer boss being Cerberus. The big girl version of a Hellhound has received significant changes to make the fight better, but it remains quite punishing. Some of you might be wondering, why is this harder than Bandos? And honestly, I don't see Bandos with a special mechanic that can deal up to 90 damage if not taken care of properly. Anyway, lava pools now only deal damage if you're standing on top of them, and the Ward of Archaeos spell can now reduce prayer drain from the ghosties by 30%, which stacks with a passive from a Spectral Spirit Shield we already have. Give this boss a try as soon as you hit level 91 Slayer, because it's actually pretty fun. I've talked about the Money Dragon, and now let's move on to the Money Slug. Available after Secrets of the North, the Phantom Muspa can be fought with either just ranged, or both range and magic. And thanks to the addition of the Eye of the Ayak, you don't really need a shadow to take care of the melee phase without feeling like a snooze fest. If using range only, you really want to master the step back method to avoid massive damage, and I have this boss up here because the shield and the final phase can definitely sit you down quickly if you miss your prayers or you don't move away from the spikes below. People always talk about which boss is more difficult between Vorkath and Zulrah. In my personal opinion, the Money Snake will always be the winner, because it is a little more convoluted to get into thanks to the 4 rotations you can get. And even when doing everything correctly, taking range hits during the mage phase can deal more than 40 damage in a single hit. The Noxious Halberd buff also comes in clutch at Zulrah, and people can now do this boss pretty efficiently with this new weapon, without the need of ranging or maging weapons. Our next group encounter is for the Nightmare. Although the Fosani received a massive change, which we will talk about soon, the regular version of this boss remains the same. If you go in with a group who already know what they're doing though, you won't really have a bad time. However, being the tank will certainly put your reaction skills to the test. Combined with the Quadrant Special, the Shadows, the Parasites, the Husks, and the Pillar Phase which summons Sleepwalkers after they have charged, this is probably the most heavy mechanic boss we have seen so far, and a great stepping stone into harder group content. I always say that doing the Whisper without the Shadow makes its difficulty go up exponentially, because the fight will take so much longer. But the Eye of the Ayak comes to our rescue for another Desert Treasure to boss. Although we are still in the hard tier, the Whisperer could give people quite a headache, but trust me, it is nothing like our upcoming encounters. The Ghost Orb and the Pillar Special done in the Shadow Realm will test your memory, reaction time and pathing, and that final phase can be quite the ordeal, which has you moving, attacking, and swapping prayers hoping for some of our uniques. Up next we have the regular Gauntlet. For transparency, I place this encounter here as a whole, because despite the crystalline Hunlith feeling easier than some of the bosses we have seen so far, we have to account for preparation phase, which will have you running around the dungeon looking for resources, creatures, demi-bosses, all within the 10-minute time limit. Some people choose to do a single kill here to hop on the Corrupted Gauntlet right after, but if you want a personal suggestion, do it until you're able to clear the preparation phase in under 5 or 6 minutes, so you are better prepared for the Red Prison. We bundle the next two together, and last on the hard category we have group normal tombs, followed by solo normal tombs of a mascot. Being an avid Raid 3 enjoyer, I can tell you from experience that a 150 doesn't really feel that much different compared to a 250 or even a 280. Things might take a little longer to kill, including a few more mechanics because of invocations, but in reality, doing it with a group will be a lot of fun, and will give you all the knowledge you need to tackle this raid on your own. If you're able to do all the bosses we have seen so far, time to take on more challenging encounters. We jump from Raids 3 to Raids 2, and the next on the list is Entry Mode Theater of Blood. Just like the previous one, we put the group and solo versions back to back, because group variants will always be easier than their solo counterparts. This is definitely the most demanding raid at higher difficulties, so you want to make sure to get familiar with all of the mechanics before you even think about the real thing. Unlike the Tombs of a Mascot entry mode, the easy version of the Theater of Blood contains all the boss mechanics, but will deal reduced damage and have less HP. You definitely want to get this done for both the Questscape and the more confidence for later fights. Whenever I go to Araxxor, it doesn't feel that bad because I have all the items at my disposal. But if you don't have things like a Scythe and Inquisitor's armor, this fight can go on for a lot longer, which opens the door for more mistakes. And the longer the fight, the more little spiders you will have to deal with. After everything is done though, the enraged phase can definitely throw some people off at first, but once you get the timing down to either run around it or make the spider hurt itself, it won't be as terrible as you try your luck at the pet and the White Rancor. Our next Desert Treasure 2 boss is the Leviathan. The fight starts out extremely chill with slow projectiles, but the longer you wait to stun it, those one-tick attacks can definitely get out of hand. When you get the timing for the lightning special and place the rocks around the arena without it blocking your path, you should be good to go for most of the fight. The only annoying part is the enraged phase, which has you being in the vicinity of the orb as you attack, swap prayers, and dodge falling rocks. After a few KCs though, you will get the timing for basic and special attacks pretty quickly. In my opinion, the hardest regular Desert Treasure to encounter is Vardorvis. Things don't get too out of control until 3 axes spawn in the arena, and despite the Stranglewood boss having less mechanics than the Leviathan, you might have to juggle a lot of them at once. Making sure you're praying correctly, prayer flicking the head, avoiding spikes in the axes could be quite troublesome for newcomers, and also having good reaction time for the blood orbs which spawn on your screen. Whenever you're able to skip the axes and to take care of all the mechanics properly, this fight is definitely the most rewarding out of the 4. One of the most recent bosses in the game is Yama, the Master of Pacts. Despite being able to take on this boss solo or duo, I think it would be silly to give them different rankings, since the only thing that changes is that it will die quicker. Because of this, it gets a single spot on the list, and whether you do it with mage or melee, this is a lot easier to get into, but will be a little harder to master in my opinion. You have to be quick on the prayer switches, the glyphs, the orbs, avoiding flames, and the final phase can be quite daunting to players just getting into it. I am not a huge fan of it, but it can be super fun to do with a partner. You have seen the Blue Prison, and now we jump into the Red Prison. I will always say that if you want to become a much better player, the Corrupted Gauntlet is one of the most important PVM activities you need to do. This will test your resource management, pathing, prayer and gear switches, positioning, and overall knowledge of the game. This time you only have 7.5 minutes to prepare, and the mechanics during the final fight get a little bit more convoluted. Just like the Crystalline Hunlith, if the corrupted version was its own encounter, it would be lower on the list, but preparation is crucial for success. Back to expert raids, which we will see a lot of for the next few spots, starting with Group Expert Tombs of a Mascot. I'm calling expert anything below 450, and although things may feel quite different from a 300 to 400 and even under 500, things won't really get too out of hand like other encounters. Group Tombs is some of the most fun I've had in this game, And like we have been seeing so far, doing this with people who know what they're doing will decrease the difficulty by quite a lot. You can expect your Missouri and the Ward kits from Deathless 350 and 425 raids on your way to that beautiful fan kit. Up next we have group regular chambers, and if you have pals who already know how to run raids 1, following their lead will be quite easy. This makes it a bit higher up in the ranking because of how complex it can get due to the random nature of the raid, and you will have to get familiar with quite a lot of bosses and puzzles on the way to the final fight. The Great Olm will be its own beast to tackle with your pals, but as long as you can switch gear and prayers and avoid crystals, lightning, bombs and flames, it won't take too many completions to start getting the hang of it. I have solo expert chambers above group cogs because I am basically thinking of anything between 400 and 500. Despite having around 700 tombs completions, a few mistakes could spell doom for me, and that is not the case for group chambers. This is where you might want to start getting some powerful weapons and gear to get through it much smoother, otherwise the fights will take quite a long time. The more invocations you add, the more things you'll need to keep in mind, but if you've done most bosses on this list so far, a solo expert shouldn't really be too hard. Small team next is one of the riskiest things you can do, not because it's super difficult, but because if a few of your teammates die, it could force the rest of your crew to teleport out. Unlike the mass encounter I told you about in the medium tier, small teams and groups of up to 6 people will change the fight quite a bit. You need to make sure everyone is tanking correctly, help your teammates when frozen, and walking under and praying correctly on that final phase if all of you are right beside Nex. This is one of my least favorite things to do in the game, but can be one of the most profitable activities in old school RuneScape. To close out the expert tier, we have Sani's Nightmare. Despite an entire phase taken off the fight a few months ago, it remains one of the hardest things to get down if it is your first time at this boss. And there's so much going on all at once that it will truly put your skills to the test. This is another boss in which the Eye of the Ayak will be super useful if you don't have a shadow, and that final phase is as scary as ever. Along the Corrupted Gauntlet, the Sani's Nightmare is something I always recommend if you want to get better at the game and to prepare for much harder encounters ahead of us. We start the Master category with one of the Yama contracts being the Forfeit Breath. And yes, we will give each of these their own ranking, just like we did with the Awakened bosses, even if they are only a one-time thing you want to do for cosmetics. The contract of Forfeit Breath is considered to be the easiest of the 5, and the one you may want to do for the Grandmaster combat achievement to Greenlog Yama. As long as you take a few stamina potions and use the Vile Vigor spell when low on energy, the fight doesn't really change too much, and this might give you the little itch to start the Radiant Oathblade grind. Coming back to our raid, up next we have solo normal chambers. In my personal opinion, it is not like TOA where if you're able to do entry, normal, or even expert raids in a group, it won't be that much different than soloing it. Going into the Chambers of Xeric on your own can be quite daunting, especially since you are doing every single mechanic on your own. And if you're able to get through the different bosses and puzzles with no one by your side, solo Olm can be one of the scariest things you can do in the entire game with proper knowledge. We stay at Chambers for the next one, but we are increasing the difficulty by a considerable amount. After you're comfortable with solo and group chambers, the challenge mode variant in a group is up next. Instead of having to go through 5 or 6 rooms, this time you have to do every single boss and the puzzle leading to the Great White Lizard. Because of this, you will need to bring a lot more items, and even though there's a bank inside so you can juggle them and bring more food with you, inventory management will be crucial for you to get faster clears. As long as everyone has a designated role at the final fight though, things will be pretty manageable after a few completions. Like we said during the introduction of entry mode, the Theater of Blood has the highest skill floor and the skill ceiling of all 3 raids in the game. This is why it could be harder to find a group if you don't have a lot of experience, and you might need to find a group through clanmates and friends, or even mentor raids in dedicated Discord servers. It's hard to summarize this activity in just a few sentences, which is why I plan on doing a Theater of Blood guide soon, thanks to so many additions we have had recently. If you want to put your skills to the test though, this place will definitely either humble you down, or give you the confidence boosting you need for what's to come. When you're comfortable with the Theater of Blood, the Tombs of a Mascot makes a final return, this time in the 500 plus variant. In the past, this is something I ever did for my fan kit, but getting better at it made me confident enough to start farming 500s for purples, although I haven't really been that lucky lately. Changes to Baba and the Akka have made this challenge significantly easier, so if you don't have a fan kit yet, there has honestly never been a better time to do it. I have a setup for a 500 without the dehydration for that Ambrosia safety net, and will make the final fight a lot less stressful for you. Our first Awaken the Desert Treasure 2 boss is the Whisper. The Eye of the Ayak surely comes in clutch for the normal fight, but when it comes to the Awakened variant, I'm sure doing it without the Shadow is possible, but I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Not only do you have to deal with 3 of each special and avoid being in the Shadow realm for too long, but they will all have increased the difficulty, which will make you question your sanity. The final phase can also get out of hand rather quickly, but once done, it will give you the confidence you need to set your sights on Blood Torva. The next Yama contract is Divine Severance. I will say something crazy here, and it is that I actually found this challenge quite fun, which I definitely cannot say about the remaining 3. You have a single tick to activate your prayers to protect against incoming attacks before they get turned off by Yama's devilish powers. And this is 1,000 times worse because incoming damage gets increased by quite a bit. So if you're not at full health, you risk being comboed out rather quickly. I will tell you how I feel about all the upcoming contracts coming up, but Divine Severance was the one that took the least amount of attempts for me. Okay, we're almost done with raids, but up next we have solo challenge mode chambers. This is a lot higher than group CMs because you need to take care of everything yourself, and the juggling all the items you need will definitely make you dizzy on your first few clears. I am of the idea that this is a much better and fun encounter when done with your friends, but the thought of a solo Tibo or ancestral piece is enough to make me want to do this more often when I have time to do it. If you're comfortable with solo chambers, we only have a few more challenges in the game, which will surely feel daunting. And speaking of daunting, we close out raids with hard mode Theater of Blood. Not only is every single boss encounter harder and more punishing to mistakes, but the chances of wiping if a single person dies on your way to Verzik are going to be pretty high, unless you are running with a team of turbo gamers. I've heard of a few of my pals that this is something you may only want to do for the cosmetics and the sanguine dust, since normal top speeds are better for profit. In terms of rating difficulty though, it doesn't get any harder than hard mode Theater of Blood in old school RuneScape. The second awakened version of a DT2 boss is Duke Succulus. I will say that this fight didn't feel extremely difficult but rather tricky, since I did it with the help of the guide and the ground markers courtesy of Red Eye Jedi. Things don't get out of hand until you have to deal with both the black orb going from side to side and the 4 vents, because a single incorrect click can take you out of cycle and fuck the entire kill almost automatically. It is also hard to summarize this encounter in a few words or phrases, but if you're looking for Blood Torva, let me know what you think of this version of Duke. The final spot in the Master category is for the Glyphic Attenuation contract for Yama. This was the second one I ever did after Forfeit Breath, and I like the fact that Jagex makes you use crush weapons instead of the powerful Emberlight or the Shadow, giving the encounter a little bit of extra spice. This is where I started to notice that the Enrage phase takes us forever, and it was not going to be an easy task. If you can do Forfeit Breath, Divine Severance, and the Glyphic Attenuation, don't be too comfortable, because the ones coming next are miles above in terms of difficulty. We dive into the final category of the bossing ladder with the Doom of Mokayotl. The newest boss in old school RuneScape is how the sweatiest of nerds can flex on each other, because this is a boss you can pretty much do indefinitely if you're good enough at the game. For the sake of this video though, I'm only taking Delve 8 into account. Getting good enough to do the quote-unquote final fight on your way to those amazing uniques could definitely take its toll, and even if you're good enough to beat it, 1 or 2 mistakes could be the end of you, and you will have to start all over again. Some people may consider the Sensory Clouding contract to be the most difficult of the 5, but I will tell you why I don't think so when we look at the next one. This variation of Yama has so many changes it's just ridiculous, but the worst of them all is that he will chase you even during the enraged phase. Juggling prayer, orbs, flame walls, and not letting him touch you for a solid 2 minutes is one of the hardest things I've had to do in the game. The Joe Watermelon video makes this fight a lot easier, because the enrage phase will be choreographed to perfection if you don't miss a single tick. And without this guide, it probably could have taken me a lot more contracts to do. A lot of people ask me what is harder, the Inferno or the Colosseum? And the short answer is that due to the Colosseum being a much shorter time commitment, it goes next on our list. This is one of my favorite things to do in the game and had a ton of fun hunting for the pet, and once you get good at it, you will barely take any damage. The Soul Heredit is also one of my favorite bosses overall, and getting the combat achievements for this place was actually very challenging and fulfilling. Except of course for that dogshit reinforcements one. If you're looking to nearly master old school RuneScape, being able to farm quivers in Valimor will certainly put you in the right direction. The Bloodied Blows contract for Yama is the absolute hardest thing I have personally done in the game. But for people just getting into them, the final 3 could be a lot worse. So let me explain. We have a lot of bosses in the game with punishing mechanics able to one-shot you. However, these can be avoided if you are paying attention. If you want to get to the enrage phase for the Bloodied Blows fight quickly though, you will have to chill at like 1 HP, giving you 0 room for mistakes. When you reach the final phase though, the orbs require you to camp at under 14 HP, and this is, in my personal opinion, the only encounter in the entire game where a singular mistake can bring your run to an end. I've done a couple of Infernos where I accidentally tank a Zuck hit and survive because I am at 99 HP. But with Bloodied Blows, you do not have this luxury. This is the only time in the entire 7 years of playing this game where I have actually slammed my desk out of frustration because just one incorrect tick during the flame wall finished my run. This is the end of my coping session, so let's continue. Getting into the top 3, the Inferno remains one of, if not the hardest things to do in the game, especially for people just getting into it. For the 2 remaining bosses, you might already have a ton of PVM experience to make them quote-unquote easier, but for players heading into the arena for the first time, will be one of the most daunting things they can do. Thanks to so many things added to the game though, and with very obvious power creep since its inception, defeating Tiskal Zuck won't be as hard as when people went in there with Armadil, but remains a top PVM encounter in old school RuneScape. The runner-up spot belongs to Awakened Vardorvis. When you get this version of the Stranglewood Menace low on HP, handling 4 axes at once for which you cannot camp on the edge of the arena, 2 heads popping out to deactivate your prayers, spikes coming out of the ground, Vardorvis dashing around like an absolute maniac, will be one of the hardest things you can do in the entire game. And to be honest, the only chill thing about this fight is the captcha phase, for which you have a lot less time to pop the orbs. Getting this boss down certainly made me feel like I could do anything in the game, and will make you feel like a champion. That anything, however, does not compare to the Awakened Leviathan, which remains the absolute hardest fight in the entire game after 2 years since we last did a bossing ladder video. A lot of people might disagree on this one, simply because the road to the enrage phase can feel even boring if you have gone through it multiple times, but that is not to say it is easy by any means. Lightning phase takes longer, you have to position rocks at the very specific spots around the arena, and you have a lot less time to hit it after you stun it. According to my Grandmaster friends and myself, the final 20% of the Awakened Leviathan is still the most mechanically demanding 30 seconds old school RuneScape has to offer, as you move with Orb, attack, watch out for falling rocks, and take care of your prayers every single tick. Not to say that you also have to watch out for that melee attack. As of September of 2025, this is how we officially rank every single boss in old school RuneScape for you to get out there and put your skills to the test and climb your way to greatness. Just like my 2023 bossing ladder and the first segment at the beginning of this upload for encounters that aren't necessarily bosses, we will close out the video with 5 challenges, which could be harder than anything on this list depending on how good you are at the game. But the difference is that they will only give you bragging rights and nothing else like an upgrade or a cosmetic. These could be highly subjective, but let me know what you think in the comments below. First up is doing the Inferno without pillars. Whether it be with a mage tank setup that has gained popularity in recent weeks, or by actually prayer flicking and interacting with the mechanics as intended, pillarless Inferno remains one of the most nerve-wracking things you can do in this game. Up next is doing a Theater of Blood run on your own. I have a good friend who is really experienced at solo ToB and literally does it for fun every now and then. And if you find yourself looking to push your skills to these heights, and once you're able to beat it, you can definitely say you are a prodigy in old school RuneScape. This is where the list starts to get a bit subjective, And the next on the honorable mentions is being able to do the Doom of Makayotl indefinitely. At the time of making this video, the deepest the delve reached is 222, which means prayer flicking and impeccable mechanics for up to 6 hours. I'm not discrediting anyone who can reach triple-digit delves, but once you get into the rhythm, it will be about correct boulder placement and then the earthen shield clearing enough acid for you to go even deeper. The runner-up spot belongs to Solo Nex. I have only watched a few videos out of curiosity because it's also something I never plan on doing, but to my understanding, you need extremely high knowledge of game mechanics and literally every single interaction in the fight. We could try to do it when we get another league, but I feel like this fight is more enjoyable with a few pals. The number one self-imposed challenge in old school RuneScape as of September of 2025 is being able to clear hard mode Theater of Blood on your own. I pitched this idea to the friend I told you about when we talked about solo TOB, and he said that nothing will ever be more difficult than clearing the hard version of the Mauritania raid. Like I said during the intro of these honorable mentions, none of these will ever be required for anything other than being able to flex, so if you're looking to push yourself beyond Grandmaster, these 5 variations of previous encounters will certainly put you in the great Olympus of old school RuneScape. So Scapers of all ages, after over 9,000 words, that concludes the longest video of 2025 on this channel. So I really hope you enjoyed and you learned something useful. If you did, I have hidden 3 codes throughout the video, and if you're the first one to join our Discord and leave one of the codes in the stream giveaways channel, you will walk away with 1 bond. I will leave a pinned comment when all of them are taken, so you are not looking around like a maniac. I want to give a huge thank you to all the people you see on this list for supporting the channel monetarily and allow me to do this for a living. I genuinely would not have the motivation I have today without you guys. If you want to be part of this list of legends, click the join button below to see all the cool perks and benefits you can get in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord for a monthly fee. I want to give a final thank you to Creator Crafted for sponsoring this video, so if you made it this far, check their website to see all of their amazing products and bring your love for old school RuneScape to real life. And remember, use code Kaoz10 at checkout or use a link in the description or the pinned comment for 10% off your entire order. In the next one, I don't know what I'll be uploading since I'm working on multiple videos at once before a trip, but I can guarantee it will be a banger. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and I will see you then. Peace.